All right, if you're joining me for C5, I did an instruction for the beginning of C5 on C4. So if you have not already, you're going to do the first instruction here for C5, which is to select the top and bottom of your palm tree and use the Pathfinder to unite those, and then position it over here at the right. That's the top of page 21, my bad. Okay, so now we have our shape here, and we're going to add a bunch more palm trees, but we're not going to draw more palm trees because this is going to be an example of showing you how to digitize artwork. We call that tracing a bitmap. That's what they call it in Illustrator. The fancy term, of course, is digitizing, because that sounds all, whatever. So bitmaps are artwork that you didn't create, clip art, that sort of thing. Now, obviously, if you're going to create artwork that isn't your own, or you're going to trace artwork that isn't your own and use it in a project, you need to make sure it's free for that purpose. We have one that's in our files that's from Pixabay, and it's just a black silhouette, so it's a pretty simple one. It's even on a transparent background, but it's not a vector. So let's show you what this looks like. In order to get a picture that came from somewhere else in here, you go to File, and then you go to Place. And in our folder, we have downloaded the palm trees from Pixabay. We're going to hit Place. And it's going to load it in our mouse. And we can basically click and drag and draw across to draw it. Okay, and we can make it bigger, so it's okay. See, now, let's zoom up real close. And I want you to be by you can hold down space bar and get the little hand to scoot over. I want you to look at your one that you drew and the one that we just placed in here. See the difference? Yours is beautiful and clear and neat and vector. And the one we placed, even though it was just a silhouette, it's a bitmap. It's pixel based. And so we can digitize artwork, including logos and things like that, within Illustrator. We have to use buttons up at the top in order to be able to do that. So to digitize, we're going to look at our options bar up here at the very top. And you're going to find the image trace button at the top. So we're going to trace this. And go to the drop down, and you can choose what you're doing. Now, if you had a clip art that had multiple colors in it, you're going to choose a different option than what we're choosing here for this example. But for this example, it's already got no background, and it's already black. So it's obviously a silhouette. So we can choose silhouettes. Now, notice what it did right there. It expanded everything out into paths. So instead of all those little dots, it is now paths. And you can make changes to this. At the top up here is a button, the image trace panel. So you can use that little options button there, which brings this up. And you have different options within here. So for instance, threshold on here. If we pull the threshold back, see how it's spikier, which is a little more like mine. So I'm pulling that threshold back so that we have fewer of the curves. Okay, that looks a little better. And you can pull it back however far that you want on there. And there's a lot of other things to mess with. If you go to advanced in here, you can choose like, paths. You can make the paths low or high. You can add more corners. There's different options in here, but you don't want to mess with it too much. Okay, now it looks like it's a vector, but right now it's still a bitmap. And we know that because it still says image tracing up here. We're not done with it. Remember the whole finalize, expand thing? That exists for these two. So once you're happy with it, at the very top of your screen is an expand button. That converts it officially into paths. And we know it's paths when it has its own little border, and we can get little dots when we click on it with that white subselection direct selection arrow. Okay, so I'm going to click up here on expand to make it final. And now, bam, see? Now we've got all those. If we were to go to our white arrow, see? We've actually got points. So if you did want to make a point, come down farther or whatever, you could. Now I don't want to do that. I'm going to press Control-0 to fit to page. All right, there it is. And then I'll just click off of it for a minute and move this out of the way. Then you can decide, where do you want this to be? And you can see kind of on the example how I have it set up in here. So I'm going to make it bigger so that it's closer to the top of my page. And you can choose how you want it to be on yours as well. And you can even have it overlap your little die over there if you want to. Okay? All right, let's save this one and then we will move on to the next page.